The galaxy had laughed at Earth for a long time. Among the thousands of known worlds, Earth was young, divided, and slow. Its ships were smaller. Its weapons were less elegant. Its people lived short lives compared to most alien races. In the great halls of alien empires, Earth was often used as a joke, a reminder of what happened when a species never fully unified. In the Valmorian Empire, the laughter was loudest. The Valmorians were tall, silver-eyed beings with long lifespans and powerful minds. Their empire stretched across dozens of star systems. Their fleets guarded trade routes, and their culture was built on order, pride, and ancient bloodlines. At the heart of it all stood the royal palace, carved into a floating mountain of crystal and metal. Inside the Grand Council chamber, 4 alien princesses sat beside the throne. Princess Erin, the eldest, was calm and sharp-minded. She studied politics and strategy and believed weakness deserved no mercy. Princess Lyra, second-born, was a master of science and technology, proud of Valmorian superiority. Princess Sayla, the third, trained in diplomacy, her words often as dangerous as weapons. Princess Nyx, the youngest, was a military prodigy, fearless and blunt. They were known across the Empire as the future of Valmoria. That day, the Council discussed rising tensions near Earth's border. A holographic map flickered in the air, showing human colonies marked in dull blue. "Humans again," Nyx said, folding her arms. "They expand like insects, but without the strength to defend it." Lyra gave a quiet laugh. "Primitive ships, outdated shields. Even their best admirals think in decades, not centuries." Sayla smiled politely. "Earth believes diplomacy will save them. They always do." Erin did not smile, but her eyes held the same belief. They are irrelevant. The galaxy moves forward without them. Across the room, nobles nodded in agreement. Earth was not a threat. It never had been. The only one who did not speak was the king. King Valcor of Valmoria sat silently upon his throne. His once bright silver eyes were dimmer now. Age had finally reached him, something rare even among his kind. His breathing was slow, heavy, and measured. He had ruled for over 400 years. He had seen empires rise and fall, and he had seen Earth bleed. The king dismissed the council early, his voice weak but firm. The princesses bowed and left together, still amused by the idea of humans mattering at all. Later that cycle, far from the laughter and light of the palace, King Valcor lay alone in his private chamber. Medical machines hovered around him, glowing softly. His life was fading, and he knew it. A memory returned to him, one he never shared. Decades ago, during a border conflict far from Valmorian space, his royal vessel had been damaged. Enemy forces surrounded it. Valmorian escorts had been destroyed. Escape was impossible. Then a human ship appeared. It was old, scarred, and clearly outmatched. The human captain had not asked for payment. He had not asked for alliance. He had simply acted. The human ship placed itself between Valcor and destruction, absorbing fire until its engines failed. A human officer boarded the royal vessel, helped Valcor escape, and stayed behind to delay the enemy. That officer's name was Elias Ward. Valcor never forgot that moment, not because a human saved him, but because the human knew he would die and still chose to act. Back in the present, the king raised a trembling hand. "Summon the human," he whispered. The servants froze. "Your Majesty, the human?" "Yes," Valcor said. "Elias Ward, he still lives." Orders spread through the palace like shockwaves. Within hours, confusion filled the royal halls. "A human?" nobles whispered. "Why now? Is this some political move?" When the 4 princesses heard the news, disbelief replaced laughter. "A human is coming here?" Nyx said sharply. "To the palace." "This must be a mistake," Lyra added. "Or a test." Erin narrowed her eyes. Father never acts without reason. Sayla tilted her head. Whatever it is, I doubt it matters. Humans do not belong in Velmorian affairs. The human arrived the next day. Elias Ward stood alone in the arrival chamber, wearing a simple Earth diplomatic uniform. He was average in height, with tired eyes and short dark hair touched by gray. No weapons, no entourage, no signs of importance. Alien guards towered over him. He did not bow deeply. He did not show fear. He simply waited. When he was escorted into the royal chamber, silence followed him. Nobles stared. Some sneered. Others looked openly insulted. The princesses watched from their seats. "That's him?" Nyx muttered. "That's the human? He looks ordinary," Lyra said, disappointed. Sayla studied his posture. Ordinary does not always mean weak. Elias approached the throne and bowed respectfully. "King Valcor," he said in clear, calm basic. "You summoned me." The king smiled faintly. "You came. I owed you my presence," Elias replied. "Not my loyalty. That belongs to Earth." A few nobles gasped at the boldness. Valcor only nodded, still honest. Humans have not changed.
Elias remained silent, sensing the weight of the moment.
The king's voice grew weaker. "You saved my life once. You asked for nothing. You disappeared into obscurity while others chased power. I did what anyone should have done," Elias said.
"No," Valcor replied softly. "You did what few would." The princesses shifted uneasily.
Why was their father speaking this way to a human? Valcor turned his gaze toward them. "My daughters, you were raised to rule through strength, pride, and legacy."
"But the galaxy is changing."
Erin stood. "Father, what does this have to do with him?" Valcor did not answer immediately. He looked back at Elias. "The Empire needs something it has forgotten," he said. "Perspective." Elias frowned slightly. "Your Majesty, I don't understand why I'm here." Valcor smiled again, sadness in his eyes. "You will soon enough." The meeting ended without explanation. Elias was given quarters within the palace, though far from royal luxury. Guards followed him everywhere. Whispers filled the halls. "A human in the palace. The king has lost clarity. This is an embarrassment." The princesses met privately that night. "This is nonsense," Nyx said, pacing. "If father thinks a human will change anything, he is wrong." Lyra crossed her arms. "Earth has no claim here. This must be some symbolic gesture." Sayla looked thoughtful, or preparation. Erin stared out toward the stars. "Father is preparing for something we cannot see." Far away, King Valcor lay awake, dictating his final will to a trusted recorder. His voice shook, but his mind was clear. "The galaxy laughs at Earth," he said. "They always have, but laughter fades when truth stands." He paused, breathing deeply. "I leave my legacy not to blood alone, but to wisdom earned through sacrifice." The recorder processed his words. In another wing of the palace, Elias Ward stared at the alien skyline outside his window. He felt the weight of unseen expectations pressing down on him. He did not know why he had been summoned. He did not know what the king intended. But somewhere deep inside he sensed that Earth's long role as the galaxy's joke was coming to an end, and the laughter would not last much longer. The next cycle began with silence. The royal palace of Velmoria had never been this quiet. No music echoed through the halls. No laughter filled the air. Servants moved slowly, heads lowered. Even the great crystal walls seemed dimmer, as if the palace itself felt the coming loss. King Valcor was dying. Medical masters surrounded his chamber, their advanced machines glowing and humming, but none of them spoke with hope. The king's life was reaching its final edge. His breath came shallow and slow, each one harder than the last. The 4 princesses stood outside the chamber. Erin remained straight and composed, though her clenched hands revealed her tension. Lyra stared at the floor, her sharp mind struggling to accept that knowledge could not save everything. Sala whispered quiet prayers in an ancient tongue. Nyx stood like a statue, jaw tight, refusing to show weakness. Inside the chamber, Elias Ward stood alone beside the king. "You should not be here," Elias said softly. "Your family needs you." Valcor gave a weak smile. "They need truth more than comfort." The king's silver eyes locked onto Elias.
"You are wondering why I brought you." "Yes," Elias admitted. "I don't belong in this palace. That is exactly why you do," Valcor replied.
He raised a shaking hand. Elias stepped closer, instinctively supporting it. "I ruled with power," the king said. "I ruled with fear when needed. But the galaxy is changing. Empires built only on pride collapse from within." Elias listened, saying nothing. "My daughters are strong," Valcor continued. "But strength without humility becomes cruelty. Intelligence without restraint becomes tyranny." The king coughed, blood staining a cloth. "You believe humans are weak," Valcor said. "So did my people. Until one human stood between me and death." Elias lowered his eyes. "I didn't do it to prove anything. That," Valcor whispered, "is why it mattered." The king's breathing slowed further. "When I am gone," he said, "the court will read my will. You will be hated. You will be mocked. Even my daughters will reject what I have done."
Elias stiffened.
"What have you done?" Valcor smiled faintly. "I trusted a human." Those were his final clear words. Moments later, alarms echoed through the palace. The king was dead. The announcement spread across Velmoria within minutes. Bells rang across the capital world. Fleets halted. Markets closed. Millions bowed their heads in respect for a ruler who had guided them for centuries. The 4 princesses entered the chamber together. They stood in silence beside their father's still form. Nyx turned away first, fists shaking. Lyra pressed her lips together, eyes burning. Saela touched the king's hand gently. Aaron closed his eyes and straightened. "The Empire mourns," she said quietly, "but it cannot pause." The next cycle, the Grand Assembly was called. Every noble house, military commander, and foreign observer gathered in the largest hall of the palace. Holographic banners displayed the royal crest. The air buzzed with tension. At the center stood the royal recorder, an ancient artificial intelligence bound by law to speak only the king's final will. The 4 princesses sat before the throne. Elias Ward stood off to the side, unnoticed by many, ignored by most. The recorder activated. "By command of King Valcor of Valmoria," it said, its voice echoing, "the final will shall now be revealed." The hall went silent. "First," the recorder continued, "the king affirms his daughters as rightful heirs of Valmoria, equal in authority and bound to rule together." Nyx smiled faintly. Lyra relaxed. Saela nodded. Aaron remained focused. "Second," the recorder said, "the king declares that stewardship of the royal authority shall be guided by an external guardian chosen not by blood, but by merit." Confusion rippled through the hall. Aaron frowned. "External guardian? This guardian," the recorder continued, "shall hold binding advisory authority over matters of war, diplomacy, and succession until the stability of the empire is secured." Whispers turned into uneasy murmurs. "Who?" someone shouted. The recorder paused. "The guardian named is Elias Ward of Earth." The hall exploded. Shouts echoed. Nobles stood. Military leaders protested. Laughter mixed with outrage. "A human? This is an insult. Earth has no standing. Madness." The princesses froze. Nyx shot to her feet. "This is a mistake." Lyra stared in disbelief. Father would never... Sayla's calm shattered. A human guardian? Aaron's face hardened. Explain, the recorder continued, ignoring the chaos. Ting Valcor further declares that Elias Ward shall be legally responsible for the protection, guidance, and unified authority of the 4 royal heirs until such time as the Empire recognizes stability under their rule. The word spread like fire. Inherited, the princesses were bound, by law, to a human. Nyx slammed her fist against the armrest.
This is humiliation. This will destroy our credibility, Lyra snapped.
Sayla's voice trembled. The galaxy will laugh at us. Aaron stood slowly. And Earth, the recorder answered. Earth shall be recognized as a protected allied world under Velmorian law, effective immediately. That ended the laughter. Shock replaced it. Foreign observers exchanged nervous looks. Rival empires went silent. Earth, mocked, ignored, dismissed, was now tied directly to Velmoria's throne. Elias felt every eye turn toward him. He stepped forward, heart heavy. I did not ask for this, he said clearly. I will not force myself upon your empire. Nyx pointed at him. You don't belong here. I agree, Elias replied calmly, but your father believed something mattered more than belonging. Aaron raised a hand. Enough. She faced Elias directly. Did you know about this? No, he answered truthfully. Then you will accept responsibility you never wanted, she said coldly. Or you will leave and let chaos follow. Elias met her gaze. I won't abandon something I didn't seek but was trusted with. The hall grew quiet. Outside the palace, news spread across the galaxy. Some laughed harder than ever. Some whispered in fear. Some began watching Earth very closely. In a quiet chamber, far from the assembly, the 4 princesses confronted Elias. This is a cage, Nyx said. For us, and for you, Elias replied. Lyra narrowed her eyes. If you fail, the Empire burns. Elias nodded. Then I'll try not to fail. Sayla studied him. Why did Father trust you? Elias thought of a burning ship and a choice made long ago. Because I didn't think about power, he said. Only about doing what was right. Aaron turned away, troubled. Somewhere in the stars, laughter still echoed. But beneath it, something new was forming. Doubt, and the galaxy had learned one dangerous truth. A human had inherited more than a title. He had inherited the future. The days after, the will felt heavier than war. The royal palace remained standing, bright and powerful. But inside it, tension spread like a silent disease. Every corridor carried whispers. Every glance held judgment. The name of Elias Ward moved from mouth to mouth, like a curse, a human guardian. Some nobles laughed openly, calling it a temporary madness of a dying king. Others were angry, afraid that tradition had been broken forever. Military leaders worried about command chains. Merchants feared instability. Foreign ambassadors sent urgent messages back to their empires. And at the center of it all stood Elias Ward, a man who never asked to rule anything. He woke each cycle before the palace lights brightened, walking alone through observation halls, looking out at the stars. Earth was far away. Velmoria was not his home. Yet the weight of an entire empire pressed on his shoulders. The 4 princesses did not make it easier. They met him only when required by law, and even then, cold distance filled the room. Princess Nyx challenged him openly. During the first military briefing, she stood with arms crossed, eyes sharp. You have never commanded a Velmorian fleet, she said. You have never faced our enemies. What could you possibly teach us about war? Elias did not raise his voice. Nothing, he replied. The room fell quiet. Nyx blinked. What? I won't teach you how to fight, Elias said. You already know that. I will ask why you fight. Anger flashed in her eyes. We fight to win, And what happens after you win? Elias asked. Nix had no answer ready. Princess Lyra tested him in a different way. She flooded him with data. Economic models, energy outputs, population charts, numbers meant to overwhelm a human mind. You cannot process this fast enough, she said calmly. The Elmorian systems are too complex. Elias studied the projections, then pointed to a small detail most had ignored. You're losing outer colonies, he said. Not from rebellion, from neglect. Lyra frowned. That is statistically insignificant. To them it isn't. Elias replied. You don't need more efficiency. You need attention. For the first time, Lyra looked uncertain. Princess Selah observed quietly. She watched how Elias spoke to servants, how he listened more than he talked, how he never demanded respect but still received it from unexpected places. One evening, she approached him privately. You don't act like a ruler, she said. I'm not one, Elias answered. Then why are people starting to listen to you? Elias thought for a moment. Because I listened to them first. Princess Erin remained the most distant. As the eldest, she carried the Empire's future like armor. She believed in structure, law, and strength. Emotion had no place in leadership. She saw Elias as chaos. In their first private meeting, she spoke plainly. You are a variable my father introduced without permission, she said. I will tolerate you only as long as the Empire remains stable. That's fair, Elias replied. She studied him closely. You don't fear us. I respect you, he said. Fear wouldn't help. Days turned into weeks. Despite resistance, Elias began working. He did not issue orders. He asked questions. Why were outer worlds taxed so heavily? Why did supply ships arrive late? Why were veterans abandoned after service? At first, officials resisted. Then they noticed something strange. Problems began to resolve. A delayed medical shipment reached a forgotten colony. A corrupt official was quietly removed, not by force, but by exposure. A border dispute cooled after Elias suggested direct talks instead of threats. None of it made headlines, but the Empire felt it. Servants started greeting Elias with respect. Junior officers sought his advice. Even some nobles stopped laughing. The princesses noticed. Nix saw fewer unrest reports from frontier systems. Lyra saw improved efficiency without increased strain. Selah saw diplomats responding positively to Velmoria's new tone. Erin saw stability where she expected collapse. Still, pride held them back. The true test came when a crisis erupted. On the outer world of Kael'rith, a mining colony essential to the Elmorian energy supply, workers stopped production. Protests turned violent. Local security requested military intervention. Nix immediately called for force. Deploy 2 battle groups, she said. End it quickly. Lyra supported limited force. The loss of energy output cannot continue. Selah hesitated. Violence will spread unrest. All eyes turned to Elias. What do humans do? Nix asked sharply. Elias looked at the data, then at the princesses. We send someone who will be listened to, he said. Nix scoffed.
You mean soldiers? No, Elias replied.
We send me... The room exploded with protest. That's suicide, Nix snapped. You'll be taken hostage, Lyra warned. This is beneath royal authority, Erin said coldly. Elias did not argue. Let me try, he said. If I fail, you can do it your way. Reluctantly, Erin agreed, but sent a covert security team. Elias landed on Kael'rith without armor, without weapons. He walked into a crowd of angry workers and stood among them. I'm not here to threaten you, he said.
I'm here to listen. At first they shouted, accused the Empire of greed.
Of forgetting them. Elias listened for hours. Then he spoke. He explained supply failures. Miscommunication. corruption, not excuses, but truths. He promised immediate changes and asked for time. The workers hesitated. No ruler had ever stood among them before. Production resumed the next cycle. The empire was stunned. News spread fast. A human calmed a rebellion without blood. Velmoria listened instead of crushed. Earth's methods work. Foreign empires stopped laughing. They started watching. The princesses were forced to face something uncomfortable. The human was changing things. One night, Aaron summoned Elias privately. "You are rewriting our traditions," she said. "I'm reminding them why they exist," Elias replied. She studied him for a long moment. "My father trusted you," she said quietly. "I am beginning to understand why." Far beyond Velmoria, rival empires held secret councils. A human at the center of power was dangerous, not because of strength, but because of ideas. Ideas spread faster than fleets, and once planted, they could not be destroyed. The galaxy had laughed at Earth. Now, for the first time, it grew silent, because the human way was working. The silence did not last long. When the galaxy stopped laughing, it began to worry. Across distant star systems, rulers and councils studied reports from Velmoria with growing concern. Rebellions were decreasing. Trade routes were stabilizing. Outer colonies were no longer bleeding resources in quiet desperation. And at the center of these changes stood something the galaxy did not understand: a human. For centuries, power in the galaxy had followed a simple rule. Strength ruled, fear enforced. Empires survived by crushing problems before they could grow. Velmoria was doing the opposite. And it was working. That made others afraid. The first strike was not military. It came as whispers. Foreign ambassadors began spreading rumors inside Velmoria's court. They questioned the legality of the king's will. They suggested Elias Ward was manipulating the princesses. Some claimed Earth had secretly planned this influence for generations. Nobles who had lost power quietly funded opposition groups. Old military leaders, uncomfortable with change, began pushing back. Elias felt it immediately. Meetings grew colder. Requests for cooperation slowed. Reports arrived late or incomplete. One evening, Princess Selah found Elias studying intelligence reports alone. "They are turning against you," she said softly. "They were never for me," Elias replied. "Only for stability." "And if stability now includes you?" she asked. Elias looked tired. "Then the pressure will increase." He was right. The next move came from outside. The Carvax Dominion, a massive empire bordering Velmorian space, announced military exercises near shared trade routes. Their fleets gathered in numbers too large to ignore. Princess Nyx slammed her fist on the command table. "This is a threat," she said. "They think we are weak. They think we are distracted," Aaron added. Lyra studied the projections. If trade routes close, our outer systems suffer. All eyes turned to Elias. The old response would have been simple: mobilize fleets, show force, prepare for war. Elias did something different.
"Send a message," he said.
Nyx stared at him. "To who?" "To them," Elias replied, "and to everyone else." The message was short and public. Velmoria would not escalate. Velmoria invited observers to witness its internal reforms. Velmoria welcomed dialogue instead of threats. The galaxy was stunned. Some laughed again. Others were confused. The Carvax Dominion was insulted. Within days, a Velmorian supply convoy near the border was attacked by unknown raiders. Ships were damaged. Lives were lost. Nyx was furious. "This is their answer," she shouted. "Permission to retaliate." The court demanded action. Even supportive nobles were afraid. Aaron faced Elias privately. "If we do nothing," she said, "we look weak." "If we respond blindly," Elias replied, We become what they expect. Erin closed her eyes briefly. Then, what do you suggest? Elias did not hesitate. Truth. They released evidence, sensor data, intercepted communications, proof that the raid was staged by mercenaries funded through Karvak's proxies. The data went everywhere. Across the galaxy, neutral systems reacted with shock. Smaller empires began questioning old alliances. Trade guilds demanded explanations. The Karvak's dominion denied everything. Then came the assassination attempt. It happened during a public address in the Grand Assembly. Elias stood beside the four princesses, speaking calmly about unity and reform. The hall was full. Guards were alert. A hidden weapon fired. The shot never reached him. Princess Nyx moved faster than thought. She shoved Elias aside, the energy blast tearing through her armor instead. She fell hard, collapsing at his feet. The hall erupted in chaos. Guards seized attackers. Medical teams rushed forward. Elias knelt beside Nyx, hands shaking. "Why?" he asked quietly as she struggled to breathe. She forced a grin. "Annoying human," she whispered. "Someone had to prove you mattered." She survived, but barely. The attempt changed everything. The attack was undeniable proof. Someone wanted the human gone. Public opinion shifted overnight. The Empire was angry, not at Elias, but for him. Servants lit candles. Citizens broadcast messages of support. Soldiers swore loyalty not just to the throne, but to the future it was becoming. The princesses stood united for the first time. Erin addressed the Empire directly. "An attack on our guardian is an attack on Valmoria," she declared. "We will not be ruled by fear." Lyra followed with evidence tying financial roots to Karvak space. Scylla spoke to neutral worlds, gaining sympathy and support. Nyx, injured but alive, recorded a message from her recovery chamber. "I once thought strength meant force," she said. "Now I know it also means restraint." The galaxy listened. The Karvak's dominion found itself isolated. Trade partners withdrew. Observers demanded answers. They backed down without a single battle. Earth noticed everything. For the first time in its history, human diplomats were invited to major galactic councils, not as observers, but as equals. Elias watched these changes with quiet concern. "This was never my goal," he told Sayla. She smiled gently. Sometimes the right thing grows larger than intent. One evening, Erin met Elias on the palace balcony. "You could have taken power," she said. "The people would follow you." Elias shook his head. "Power taken is power feared." "And power shared?" she asked. "Power shared lasts," he replied. She looked out at the stars. "My father chose well." Beyond Valmoria, old empires trembled. Because humans had not arrived with fleets or weapons. They had arrived with ideas, and ideas were harder to fight than wars. The galaxy was no longer laughing. It was preparing, and the final test was coming. The Empire had changed. It was no longer just a collection of systems ruled by bloodlines and fleets. Valmoria had grown into something new, something stronger. Citizens spoke of fairness. Colonies received attention they had never known. Even the distant worlds began to trust that their voices mattered. And at the center of it all stood a human. Elias Ward walked through the palace gardens, watching alien suns set over crystal towers. The air smelled faintly of blooming luminescent flowers and warm stone. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel a small measure of peace. The Empire had survived crises, attacks, and doubt. And it had survived because humans had taught Valmoria something that no alien power ever had. Humility and reason could be stronger than fear. The four princesses approached him, moving in quiet unison. They no longer whispered insults behind his back. They no longer doubted his presence. Instead, they moved with purpose, each carrying their own strength but tempered by something Elias had instilled in them. Cooperation. Nyx walked first. Her wounds had healed, leaving faint scars, but her eyes held the fire they always had. "You've changed everything," she said, voice low but steady. "Even I have to admit, without you the Empire might have fractured." Lyra followed. Her arms were folded, but her tone was no longer sharp. "You see patterns where we see chaos. You notice people where we see numbers. The Empire listens to you." Scylla, calm and deliberate, added, "The galaxy may have mocked us, but it is watching now, and it respects what you've done." Finally, Erin stood beside them. Her presence was as commanding as ever, yet her gaze softened. "You've shown us a way that even we, trained all our lives in strategy and rule, could not see. Perhaps our father was right." Elias shook his head slightly. "I did not come to teach, and I did not come to lead. I came because of a choice I made long ago. But I stayed because I realized sometimes what is right is bigger than what you expect." They walked together through the gardens in silence, a silence that was not empty but full of understanding. News had spread across the galaxy. Former enemies whispered in their councils. Other empires had watched Valmoria act without force, without deceit, and without fear, and they had witnessed success. A human, laughed at for centuries, had become a symbol of wisdom. Reports from frontier worlds reached the palace daily. Rebels who had thought to rise quietly had joined governance councils instead. Economies improved, trade routes reopened. Peace had come without a single warship fired, a single life sacrificed beyond necessity. And yet, Elias knew the danger had not ended. The galaxy was vast, and many still believed in power over reason. But for now, Valmoria had learned a lesson it would not forget. The princesses had grown alongside him. Nyx had learned restraint. She still held her martial skills and tactical genius, but she now understood that strength could be held in patience, not just in weaponry. Lyra had seen that logic alone did not command loyalty. It must be paired with understanding, and the attention given to those others overlooked. Sayla had discovered that diplomacy required courage, not just words, but honesty. People followed those who spoke truthfully, even when inconvenient. Erin had realized that leadership demanded compromise. Even the strongest cannot succeed alone. The wisest knows when to listen. Valmoria itself had been reshaped. On the day of the public council, the 4 princesses stood together on the grand stage of the palace assembly. Elias Ward stood beside them, a quiet presence that drew respect without demand. Citizens, ambassadors, and nobles alike filled the halls. The air vibrated with anticipation. Princess Erin spoke first. "For centuries, Valmoria ruled by power alone. We trusted in blood, in strength, in fear. And for a long time it worked." Lyra followed. "But we overlooked something fundamental. Our empire is more than walls, weapons, and fleets. It is made of people, and people need more than orders. They need care, guidance, and fairness." Sayla continued. "We were tested, and we failed in small ways. We could have ignored our colonies, our citizens, and even ourselves. But a human reminded us that leadership is not only inherited, it is earned." Nyx stepped forward, her armor gleaming under the alien lights. "I have learned that true strength is measured not in battles fought, but in lives saved. Not in fear inflicted, but in trust built. And for that lesson we owe more than words can express." Finally, Elias spoke. He did not step forward to claim attention. He simply raised his voice so all could hear. "I did nothing alone. The princesses led. The empire followed. And together, we proved that even the smallest, most underestimated people, or planets, can change the galaxy when given respect and understanding." The assembly erupted in applause, not just for the words, but for the truth they represented. Beyond the palace walls, other empires received reports of Valmoria's stability and calm. The Karvax dominion, once a looming threat, withdrew from all border conflicts. Trade resumed. Alliances shifted. Humanity's reputation rose quietly, without fanfare, without arrogance. Even Earth noticed. For the first time in its long laughed-at history, human leaders received invitations to speak in galactic councils, not as petitioners, but as equals. Elias did not see this as triumph. He saw it as the beginning of something greater. Humanity had not conquered by fire. Humanity had conquered by action, by principle, by patience. The princesses no longer questioned him. Instead, they sought his counsel when problems were thorny and challenged him when solutions seemed incomplete. Their respect was earned, not demanded. In quiet moments, they reflected on their own growth. Nyx had learned patience. Lyra had learned to value the overlooked. Selah had learned that courage can be quiet. And Erin had learned that compromise strengthens leadership rather than weakens it. Valmoria, the empire that had once laughed at Earth, had been remade. And at the center of it all stood a human who had once been ordinary, a human who had never sought power, and a human who had reminded an entire galaxy of what courage, integrity, and humility could achieve. From his balcony, Elias gazed at the stars. He saw worlds of endless possibility, civilizations full of pride and arrogance, and the unknown beyond. Yet he knew one thing clearly: humans did not inherit the galaxy by force. They inherited responsibility. And when they acted wisely, the results could defy expectation. The princesses joined him on the balcony, standing together as equals and allies. A gentle wind passed through the gardens, carrying the distant songs of Valmoria's citizens and the hum of ships preparing to explore the stars. Elias spoke softly. "Your father trusted me. I do not regret it. But the empire, your empire, trusted itself to grow. That is what changed everything." Nyx smiled faintly. "We laughed at Earth, thinking it weak. I wonder what the galaxy will say now." Lyra added, "It will speak in respect, if it speaks at all." Selah nodded, "And perhaps it will listen." Erin's eyes glimmered. "Perhaps we have finally become what we were meant to be. Rulers not only by blood, but by wisdom." Elias looked at them all, and for the first time in centuries he felt the weight of expectation ease. The galaxy would always test them, challenge them, and doubt them. But Valmoria and Earth had proven something far greater, that even in the face of laughter, even in the face of doubt, humans could stand, and they could make a difference. Together, they looked at the stars. The galaxy would never laugh at Earth again. It would watch with respect, curiosity, and perhaps a little caution. And the human, who had inherited nothing but responsibility, smiled quietly. He knew that this was only the beginning, because true power is not taken. True power is earned and used wisely. And Valmoria, with its 4 princesses and its human guardian, had earned it. The stars beyond awaited them, and the galaxy was ready to see what humanity could do.